And we are live. Welcome to Blender Today, number 49. We're approaching the 50 episodes of this weekly meeting, gathering here on YouTube and on Twitch as well. We are live. It's 9 p.m. in the European Central Time. So ask your questions away. Let me know. Yes, thank you for the thumbs up. Everything is okay. The sound is okay. Last week I had an issue, a technical issue, which I hope I addressed. I spent like 2 days trying to compile the FFmpeg with NVIDIA encoding hardware stuff. So hopefully this will be fine. Let's get to business because there's plenty of things. Last week there was not so many to talk about. But actually this week there are a few too many. One of them, it's exciting one. It's the animation, the denoise support for animation support for denoising, the cycles denoising. It's not those fancy optics one or the Sony one open exactly. It's just the cycles one. It means that now you can, when calculating the denoise, it can calculate it not only for the one frame, but also based on the frame prior on the next one. So it's even better. And as we know, the cycles denoiser is actually really good for like the last part. Is there are many denoisers out there. Some of them are really good for like the very first few noise, like the first few passes. But then if the more the samples, sorry, not passes, samples, and the more you go, the maybe not so accurate it gets. So I think it's a great thing. We're actually using it in production in the Spring Open Movie project. We are using it and abusing it. One of the there are a few scenes with a lot of fog and volume, so we need to use denoising, especially for the last part. It also has an extra benefit that it not only works on during the render like it used to be, but it now has a specific operator like an after process. So for now it's a bit archaic. The way of running it is it's a command line thing, but in the future it can become like a node. It can become like super handy to use, but for the time being it's not. So it's not handy to use. It is it's just we ask too much. We're just too picky. So no, it's gonna be great. Trust me. Let's get to it. How are you been doing, by the way? How was your week so far? It's here it's been great. The days are getting longer and I cannot wait to stay home and don't do much but just make videos about Blender. You're not showing up because here, there you go. That's you. Awesome. Finally got you live. Thank you. Yes, we are live. All right, let's get to business. It's Monday, so the developers gathered together for the meeting. Today, this morning at 10 a.m. was a meeting, and the topics has been discussed. Some of them they define what to do during the week, and some of them is just up to date what happened last week. So what happened last week, it's I'm gonna mention about I'm gonna do a demo about the denoiser. I'm gonna talk about collections. That's kind of a big deal. But oh no, I haven't made the question forum yet. Good idea. Let's make some advertisements for Blender Today before it goes down. So okay, I'm gonna go to Blender Today. I'm gonna log in with my Blender ID. Oh, because I wasn't logged in. Okay, let's just open it in the new tab where I'm actually logged in. And I don't want to open too many browsers because last week that's when it happened. So let's do it. So YouTube channel, and I'm gonna make it. I mean, maybe I should ask some of you guys to do it. I'm gonna do it this week, but you should do it next week. So that way you get the karma, the sweet karma, and whoever wins is gonna get all the comments and stuff. So that is the post. It's gonna go live in 5, 4, 3, bam. Ask away, and I will try and answer as soon as possible. For the time being, let's get to it. The questions, maybe towards the end of the show. The questions will go later. Save them. For now, let's see what's new. Bevel got better. Image, movie clip, and sequence editor also got better. It now has support for metadata, which was there before, but not for everything, especially for the OpenEXRs, for the Blender Extra super cool file format with it, which is OpenEXR, the one from Sony, and Sony or Weta, Weta, I think. OpenEXR plus the multi-layers from Blender, so it's a combination. Let's wet my my throat a little bit. So cheers, guys. Welcome to yet another Blender Today. Next week is number 50. We should do something special. Should we have a guest? Yes, we should have a guest. Someone from the studio that is not too busy. The studio is crazy these days. There's render stuff, finals, Blender crashes all the time. The outliner gets changes, so we are using Blender, but it's under heavy transformations right now. So it's I don't I don't wish that to anybody. The edit mode though has been improved because Clement Foucault, it's amazing. He's been working on the wireframe drawing, so when you're in edit mode, so now it's much more crispy. It's also supposed to be better, more performant and better anti-aliased. So it just keeps Blender 2.8 keeps getting prettier. Outliner collection, we're going to talk about it in a bit. Then Bevel and the metadata for image, movie clip, and sequence, video sequencer. So it means that you can render. Oh, where is the beer? Yeah, I just served it and I didn't drink it. Cheers, prosts, salud, santé, kippis, skål, nastrovia. And I ran out of let's move on. What I wanted to show actually is the denoiser, so I can start rendering something here, because the rest of the development news, yeah, there is a new automated testing. It's a whole event simulation system in the Blender API, so now you can tell Blender to basically fake movements and perform actions. So it can be very interesting. The reason why it was developed is to test, to automate the testing of tools, or also the undo system got improved last week. And in order to test that and all the crashes that were related to undo, it's Nazdarovia, chair, awesome, thank you. Zoom wall. In order to check all of that and retest and automate this, it was Campbell implemented these awesome tests. But I wonder if they could be used for like macros or something like that. Could be fun. Just do, you know, like Procreate or those apps where you do something and then, or I think ZBrush has it, that you do something and then it records all your movements. Could be fun. Removing fake user, that's something the guys are talking about. What do you guys think about the fake user and automatic block deletion? So like basically remove that when you are, yeah, I actually kind of like the fake user concept, but I know, I understand it's weird. It's a way to tell Blender like, hey, don't delete this guy, I'm gonna use it or not, maybe. So I don't mind it actually. It saved me a few times, the fact that I remove something or like, yeah, remove it, but then it's still there with 0 users. Actually saved me a few times because I realized, oh, I actually need that thing, and it was there with 0 users waiting for me to use it, instead of closing Blender and losing it forever. So the purge operator has been improved, DNA renaming stuff, Cycles OpenCL is being worked on by Jorun Bakker, like I mentioned last week. He joined the Blender Development Fund. Thank you, Saurav. Any news about the game engine? Not everything knows. I really like the old Blender game engine. Can you make a new game engine community like VSE? Love your streams. Thank you. I'm Blender. We can make a community for games inside of blender.community. Blender.community, if you are not aware, is where many communities live, such as Blender Today, Blender Hoy in Spanish, right click, Blender Object, Blender NPR, and Video Sequence Editor. These communities, they focus on one area of Blender because It's like a small community within the community, and we can make one for games. But yeah, the game engine it's not gonna be anywhere near. There are other great game engines out there. There is even open source ones such as Godot, which they visited. They came. Yes, I actually have the sticker there. I should show it. They came by. They visited. We had drinks. We talk about the possible ways to make Blender and Godot work better together. So very, very exciting. I really like that they dropped by. And that's it for now. There is the outliner collection thingy that I'm gonna talk in a bit, but first let's actually work about the topic of this week, which I haven't even started yet. So denoise in animation. If you know how denoising works, basically you just you have a render. So for example, let's make it like this. Let's render in the image editor. So basically when you render a very noisy render, even more noisy, let's set the render samples to like ridiculously low, like 4. So okay, or let's even make it more noisy and let's give it something to bounce on. So something like that, and then something like that maybe. So the light bounces around and it's very noisy. Yeah, noise. I don't know if you get to see it with Blender with the YouTube compression, but basically what I'm doing here is making a very noisy render, and I'm doing it on the fly so we can see the process. Some may say I'm unprepared, but I say I like to teach every example. So what you need to set up for rendering, if you want to use denoising on the viewport, it's like on the render itself, you're just enabling it, and then you need to re-render again, which is kind of a pity, because then once you finish the render, that's the only time where you're actually going to see the final result. So you see, as it's rendering, is denoising it. So that's nice, but what if you're not happy with that level of denoise? It's not cool. So you can now process the denoising after you rendered. That's super good news, because it means that you just can render a pass. That's what you need to enable. In passes, you have to enable, if you want to run denoising afterwards, the denoising data. Once you have that, you need to have the denoising sample, the passes rendered for the passes that you want to, here, for the glossy or diffuse or transmission that you want to denoise. So once you have that, you just need to render and need to output it or save it somewhere in the in your hard drive. So for example, let's say I want to render output this to my home Godot desktop. Let's put it in the Blender desktop. Noisy. Okay, let's save it here. And I'm gonna save it with like 4 values. And then let's just save it there. So I'm gonna make it slightly smaller so it doesn't take so long. And I'm gonna render 3 frames. Just that. Control F12 just to render the animation. So this is gonna, oops, I know, I don't want PNG. That's actually the big step that I was missing, is you need to set it up as OpenEXR multi-layer. So once you have it there, then you can render the animation, because otherwise it's not gonna work. It needs to be EXR multi-layer. Yes, it makes the files much bigger, but that's okay. It's not like huge frames. On Spring Open Movie Project, we have frames of around 100 megabytes per frame, OpenEXR files, and it's not too bad. It's kind of, I mean, it could be less, but the compression and with all the color information that you have, it's not too bad. So okay, I saved this animation, so it should be somewhere on my hard drive. So if I have 3 XR files and they are my render. So in this case, it's like only 8 megabytes because the image is very small. But now once I have this, I don't even need to have this blend file open. I can just like start a completely new file like some other day. And I need basically I just need a terminal, because you can run it. I mean, you can also run a Python script, you know. If you run Blender from the terminal, you just do Blender, and then you do like /p, I think, for Python, or /P, I think it's P for Python. You can do --help in this case, and then you can see how to run a Python script. So you just give it a Python script and you give it whatever the path of the image that you want to calculate, and the path of the Python file that you want to run. So in this case, since I'm already within Blender, I can simply do bpy.ops, because it's an operator. I'm gonna make this bigger for you, actually for me, but I say no, it's for you guys, of course. bpy.ops.cycles, and in the cycles operators, there are not so many actually. If you just keep auto-completing, you will find the noise animation. Remember, this is just a work in progress. It's not the final. It's it's a work in progress. It was added today. Come on, it was a patch by Lucas Stockner and Brecht van Lommel, so it was just added today for testing. So basically, it takes the input file path and the output file path. So input, let's give it, for example, the folder where I was working on. So basically that is my input, and then let's see, the output file path can be a folder here. So I give it here, and then it's gonna save in this folder. So if I run it, the cool thing is that it's gonna do it on post, because this flen file, as we know, it's not it's empty, like it doesn't have anything. It's not related to the other one. And if I run this command, the cool thing is that it's gonna use the settings from the scene, from the view layer cycles. So it's gonna use the settings from here. So it means that you can test different settings. So for example, let's use a radius 4, so it's faster, and let's run it. So error, cannot find file. Why cannot find file? Because it's a folder. Cannot find file. Okay, if you don't want to find the file, I'm gonna force you. And let's try do 001 EXR. For simple files. There you go. So I give it the path. When I tested it today, it was taking the whole folder. Failed to save the file. Because now it also needs the actual. Actually, I can just put it here. Denoised.exr. So now this will do a single frame. Before this afternoon, when I was testing it, if I didn't give it a path, it will just do it. Okay, now why is it failing? Come on, I tested it before. Why is it not saving? Home Coro Blender Denoise.exr. Do a punti. Maybe it doesn't like the quotes. Scanning literal. Okay, it's embarrassing, but it's trust me guys, it's amazing. Okay, cannot save. Failed to save the. You guys have any idea? Maybe I don't need to give it the EXR. Maybe we'll just make it. It will just work. You show a blue message. No, I cannot save. Boring. What if I don't give it? Basically, it would save the denoise file, and I tested it this afternoon. Okay, never mind. It was amazing. You trust me, you wouldn't believe it. It was the next levelest thing you will ever see. So basically, we'll save the image as it was such a great feature. Yeah, I know. I know, right? So basically, we'll open this, and then you will give it a input file path and an output file path, and it would just just work basically. So what if I give it only the input path? Oh, and then it should make it automatically. it cannot save. Okay, that's the most boring thing ever. You suck, Blender. No, it's not Blender's fault. It's, I bet, yeah, of course it is. So what if I save it here? So just the Coro. No, same. I was the number 2. Anyway, it's open source. You cannot trust open source. Okay, next. Pff, boring. I'm gonna rename this video to something else. Look at the feature that I could not show. Basically, it would render this and it will just make it a it couldn't save the file. What the hell? Maybe the terminal is printing something. Let's save the file. I save over the same file. Maybe the terminal is printing something more useful. Then denoising frame, you see, even is denoising it. It just couldn't save it. So it's somewhere in the matrix. Go away, Denoise, you suck. Actually, it doesn't suck. It's pretty cool. Let's move on to this embarrassing moment of outliner collection and object visibility. That's another thing that changed last week. Save the blend file. No, I actually saved the blend file before, right? Yeah, I saved the blend file and I run this and it still fails. But it's actually a good idea. But you see, it's making it. It's using not even an interface thingy. Okay, never mind. You suck. Let's move on to another exciting topic. Not the outliner visibility issue. What happened? Well, long story short, one column went away. The long version of the story is a bit more involved. So basically, you know that this last week there were 4 columns. One was for selection, one was for visibility, one was for the, you missed the slash before the input. Okay, in the meantime, I'm gonna trust the initial slash at the beginning. No, it has slash home. No, I think I did it right. Okay, home Coro 2. No, and if I didn't give it when I made it load the file, I didn't. Oh, thank you for my failure. Thank you, Julian. You're awesome. You're making me feel less of a failure. But the cool thing is that it runs. It just cannot save in slash home slash Coro. No, not even a permission denied. Yeah, I need to. Yeah, I don't have to save it. It will just use the settings. It's like magic, guys. Just believe me. I tried it this afternoon. I'm gonna post something like a blog or like something because it was just great. There goes my clickbait. All right, back to the collection visibility. Basically, there is some confusion going on with the collections visibility. There are a few like threads going around, discussions here and there. The discussion went on that there are too many visibility settings in one spot for the outliner. So what does it mean? It means that before we used to have 4 columns here. So you would have for selectability, renderability, that was fine. But then you could also hide objects of your scene. But then there was also a screen icon, which gonna be replaced. But basically it would, thank you for believing me, it would allow you to like disable that object, that collection, also like for good, for all the viewports, but also when your object is linked. When the scene is linked, when the action, when the collection is linked. So now you can access that by alt clicking and then it would disable it as well. This is work in progress. It's just I don't think it would stay like this because it's a bit hidden right now. So it's like just hiding it for the sake of hiding it, like just to not have one extra column. I mean, at some point we're gonna have an extra column, so I think this needs to be discussed further. So in developer.blender.org there is this this thread discussion that has been going on that we can see in the tick to depths here, Logic and Usability by Julian Casper. He wrote this little Bible where he describes the issues where we have in the Blender Studio and the confusion overall. The thread goes for quite some time. Here, Dalai, mi amigo, made a very nice description of what each one of the cases mean, like what, not related to like the UI or anything, just what does it mean to have so many levels of visibility. And it's really not that complicated. The thing is, we used to have many of these visibility settings. They were in other areas in Blender 2.7. Why in Blender 2.7 it wasn't an issue? Well, because in 2.79 we only had visibility per object here, so you couldn't hide per layer. You couldn't hide all the layers. Like, you could hide the layer, but I mean, it would still be there. It was just a bit confusing. The thing is, Blender 2.7 had visibility per object, right? And one of the issues it was that if you would link this object somewhere in a different blend file and you forgot to enable it, then it will be gone. Like, you have to go to the original file and you couldn't overwrite it. So it's very annoying. So now this is back. It's so now that you can actually disable it for linking, it's great. The thing is that it's there. It's in the outliner and can cause confusion. But it was basically the equivalent to have the layer on or off, like that. That's basically it. The enableability. Another issue in Blender 2.8, you can exclude. You have to if you want to exclude collections, you do it, or collections only. You have to do it from the outliner for the time being. Whereas in 2.7, you would do the exclusion from the render layers settings. So you will use this amazing interface for the scene, which is basically a copy of these buttons over here. Then you could specify which layers belong to this render layer. So you could have some here and some there. So this is basically what you would do by linking collections or unlinking them from the scene. So you basically have collections that are somewhere, but they're not in this view layer. So for example, if I wanted to add a monkey, it will be in this collection, and then I have the monkey. But I can also just unlink this collection, and the monkey is still there. It's just not on this render layer or view layer, how we call it. So if you make a new one, you can unlink this collection, but you can also you can bring the other collections by going to the scenes, collections. Ah, no, you don't have the other collections. Wait. Okay, now I'm making fool of myself. I changed both collections. Oops, I screwed it up. Yeah, and I unlinked the other ones. This live stream is going great. Instance to scene. There you go. So I was in the Blender data, not in the scenes. So what's the use of scenes now for the objects? Yeah, very useful. Let's go to Blender file. Blender 2.8 needs some love here. We need to give it love. So basically, from the collections, you can link or unlink into this view layer, which is what used to be render layers. It's very like it now is visual, like now that you see it, now that you know where you are. But I think the scenes should also have scene collections. We should have all the collections here too, so that way we can just drag and drop them, because then it's easy. If you are in the in another view layer and you just want, for example, you don't want the monkey, but you want the other, then I know I'm instancing to the scene. I'm so brilliant today. I need to exclude them, which is what you do with the E key, with the E for exclusion, which is another way of making your scene a bit more complex by adding objects in the collections and then excluding the collection. So in Blender 2.7 we had exclusion here in its own settings, and then you have masking too, which is not even brought back completely. I think you have to right click and then view layer, set holdout. So it's kind of what the masking is, which is it's actually what the masking is, but it's all done in the outliner. So who is this guy? Bring back Pablo. I know, and I didn't even drink today yet much. No, only tea. It's just, I'm just baffled by all the changes lately. The main issue that I see is that all the visibility settings here, the layer, the exclusion, the mask layer, the visibility there, they are now trying to be shoveled into our poor outliner. We might just need to bring back this kind of layout for the render layers. I mean, for the view layers. Why not? Just trying to shovel everything here, just trying to make 3 type buttons. Maybe that's the way to go, but not for this tool. It's just like, why then I can't just hide it for the screen but not for the viewport here, because it's a collection. Yeah, it's a bit confusing. So, oh, and I didn't even mention about local view, like when you can have an object and you just make it here, you just make it local view, because that only hides it for this viewport. But there is also another level of visibility, which is not local view, but when you disconnect the viewport to show other kind of layers, other type of layers, which is just amazing, because then you have viewports with only showing certain layers or collections in 2.8. Then you have local view, then you have per object visibility, and then you have exclusions on the layers. It's just insane. It's gonna get better, guys. It's gonna get better. There's people spending quite some time trying to study the system. Then there are mockups going on. You are free to join the discussion with all the respect in the world. Try to be nice. Everybody's trying to make it work. This concept by William, we actually discussed this basically to have an enable disable, and we had it for a while, if I'm not wrong. Dalai, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we did it back in at the beginning or during the call quest, if I'm not wrong. Or even before that, the year before, when the line was here. Anyway, long story short, it's work in progress. Do not even try to learn what it's there now, because it might change. There's so many discussions going on. So brace yourself. We are in production in the Spring Open Movie project, so there will be the compatibility should be there. Like, we cannot fix all the files that we have, so there will be work done to try and keep everything compatible. It's mainly about an interface issue, so don't forget to check out the changes in Blender in Spring, because they are just super cool. Even hair scene, which I didn't believe it was gonna be possible. Believe it or not, this is 2.8. You can actually do sort of hair seam and collisions and stuff. With this is basic 2.8. This is not not even like fancy new features. No, it's just basic stuff. There has been today there was a fix on the hair particles. They weren't rendering properly. So if you had issues with hair particles, try again the latest beta. Yes, beta, because it's been fixed. And that's it, I believe. I can fly. I have a list here, collections, commands. Oh yeah, there's a new command line for Blender. In here, in the list of commands that I showed before, there is one for starting Blender maximize. So the window here, window maximized, you can run it. So Blender, in this case I call it latest because it's the latest Blender, but you can also dash window dash maximize, and it's gonna open full screen. It's gonna force it to open full screen. Usually it remembers what the window was, by the way, but yeah. Then the user preferences, there is a setting that got removed, basically the tweak and the drag, which was a bit confusing. So now there is the drag threshold, which lets you tweak how many pixels you need to offset, you need to drag in order for the dragging to work. So for example, if you're with your pen and you start dragging something, then you need to be a certain number of pixels. So you click, drag, and then for example this number of pixels, and that you set it up in pixel size. Before there used to be two settings for this, the tweak and the drag, and they were different things, but people got confused, so now they are merged. Now they're basically the same setting now. The other the animation denoising operator, which I have the link here, but as we've seen it before, it wasn't working really well. Well, it was well, but it wasn't saving, and I was saving when I tried it at work. So maybe something changed in the API from this afternoon until now. So that's pretty much it. Another feature that is no longer among us is the feature for keep session. In Blender 2.7.9, there was this feature that Tom Rosendahl added, which was 2.7.9. He added it so you could close Blender if you had this setting on, which was in file. Yes, file. So basically, if you enable keep session in 2.7, you can just basically do stuff like make your amazing scene, close Blender, then open it again, and just not because I don't have the setting on that I didn't save the user preferences, but you get the idea. Today it's the brightest. If somebody is watching this for reference, it's like, so this is what the Blender Today guy are doing. So okay, say I have this here, and then I close. Maybe I need to save at least once. Yeah, that makes sense, Pablo. So then I just close Blender without saving it. It would, next time I open Blender, it would continue. So that is the keep session. It keeps, basically it forces Blender to open your last saved file, which in 2.8 you can do from file, recover last session. So that was it. The setting would basically open this for you, the quit.blend. That's pretty much it. No, not a big loss there. Basically, it wasn't working completely well, was a bit confusing, and since not a lot of people were using it, it got removed. Time to answer questions, because otherwise I will continue with this failure of a live stream. I mean, I kind of hope that the hardware fails or the internet goes down or something, because I'm failing so much at live streaming today. Maybe I'm too excited about the upcoming 50th birthday. All right, so Suri Greer. I'm gonna close a bunch of tabs here to make it a bit better for my laptop. So Suri which is a CodeQuest supporter and a Bronze Development Fund supporter, say, hey, Pablo, what is the current status of the UI Papercat? There are now over 1,500 posts in the Dev Talk thread. When will this be reviewed and or implemented? Those are, the Papercats are not, I know there are over, if you go to Dev Talk, and you should see the amount of UI Papercats. Yes, here it says 1.5 replies. Yes, but how many of these replies are actual, like, they're answers to something else? This forum, the way the forum works is not the best. But some of them are nice. Like, for example, yes, size. I don't know exactly which one this is. Oh, here. So some of them are interesting, some of them are just questions, some of them are rants, some of them are, I mean, you could argue. This one, for example, with having a little bit of opacity, this one I like. This one I think we should implement, because we, in the Blender 2.8, the sidebars are now fully transparent, which means that sometimes you're here, and even though you can click through it, some things just don't work. So you can't pan, for example. So here you pan, here you can't middle click to pan. So because you're panning basically this, and there is little way of knowing how that you're inside of this area unless you go to the border and then you find this weird mouse. So if we had like maybe a little tint of color, which we can change in the theme, maybe that will help. The same for here in the header. It happens if you try to pan here but here doesn't work, here it works, because here is the transparent header. So maybe Blender could be smart, and if there's nothing underneath, it could let you click through it, but in the meantime maybe we can just have a light tint of color, at least to know you're in that area. Some of the other ones, they are, yeah, it's mainly discussion actually. So it's 1,500 of mix of discussion and yeah. So about implementation, they are Papercats. Some of them can be added easily. Some of them are not so easy. Yeah, some of them, if I said typo, like I liked at the very beginning, there were a few that they were like, oh, this theme is like a pixel off, or this setting is something a bit wrong. So that way, that I liked, because those are easy things to do, but some of them are very deeply and harder to implement. So I think we should just curate them and try to find a list of things. We have a list of things actually on the forum, on the developer to-do task, but the list has been growing, and as you've seen, some of them they have been tackled, but not all of them. So yeah, it needs some time. Right now the focus is on making Blender not crash, so it it's hard. Mr. Gooley says, so far we can bake roughness in cycles, but not the metallic channel. Will that be possible eventually? I plan on writing an add-on for creating and baking game-ready PBR materials in Blender, not unlike what you can do in Substance Painter. Without full baking capabilities, that's not going to be possible. Yeah, that needs to be implemented. I haven't heard plans of that yet, but it should be implemented. Baking in general needs work in cycles, because in Blender internal you could do things that you cannot do yet on cycles. It's not fair. We can't get internal removed without a replacement. Lapis asks or says, the 2.8 selecting between armature and other object is feeling really strange. I hope that is a bug, not a design decision. Also, any progress on optimizing the wireframe? This was actually done this week, and I hope that this bug, it's still a work in progress though, but the selecting between armature and other objects is feeling really strange. I think it's just this option, the new option for lock object modes, that it's enabled by default. So if you have your object and your armature, for example, and then you pattern them. If you're in where is it here? Pose mode. Hey, control. Oh yeah. I'm having an issue with the pie menus. Tab for pie menu. No, I don't want tab for pie menu. I want tab for edit mode and control tab for pose mode. Yes, there you go. So yeah, you cannot select when you're in pose mode. You can select the bones but not the mesh because of this new option for locking object modes. It is enabled by default. Maybe should be turned off to make it feel more like 2.7, where you could just basically click from one object to from the armature object to the other objects. Macros, yes, please. Edit mode wireframe. Please let us disable anti-aliasing. It can be important to see the jagged lines to determine the direction they are leaning. Yeah, isn't that possible actually? If you just lower the quality of the viewport, quality 0, no multisample, or is it always there? This is for textures. No, is it? Yeah, for some reason I noticed it like being less quality before. For the direction they're leaning, that's actually a good point. Maybe there are other ways of fixing that other than anti-aliasing, like disabling anti-aliasing. With the current power on the iPad Pro, could you see Blender on it in the future? Well, considering that Apple is getting rid of OpenGL support in macOS, I have very big doubts they're gonna just let it go in like they'll keep supporting it on iPads or iOS. Jens, hi. Now that you can edit multiple objects together in edit mode, is it possible for proportional editing one set to enable to have effect on all the objects? Same as loose parts of a mesh will be affected if they belong to one object. That's a good point. I haven't. Well, where am I here? Yeah, that maybe we need to ask the developers. Basically, it's the when you have multiple objects, that you have one object, and that with the proportional editing, that you could basically affect multiple objects. That could be possible. It's not possible already. When I don't know exactly, I always go to the, in this case, to the bottom, just to see the instructions, just to know if I'm missing something. But yeah, it should be, which sounds very tricky to do though. Hola Pablo, is there a way to improve the text tool so you can access to the installed fonts in the system? Yeah, it's it depends on the per system basically, but that should be a not so hard task for a developer that wants to join and do a little coding. Doesn't sound like a super complicated tool. Maybe our friend Plasma Solutions, Tom Beck, wants to work on it. Sarao says, in 2.8, split viewport, change it to the outliner and create new collection. I don't know if it's fixed or not. Don't worry about. You're doing best today. Thank you. That's very nice. In the split the viewport, change it to outliner and create new collection. I'm not sure here. Thank you, by the way, for contributing to Blender today. Split window, create new collection. Seems to work here. I don't know exactly what you mean, but let's continue. Hola, is there a way to improve the text tool? Yes, that I just mentioned. Hi, you talked about different builds for different tasks long ago. Is it actual? Will be some builds for Android. Oh yeah, there were builds for Android, not for iOS. iOS it's no. But Android, there was a Blender build for Android. I had it on my phone, a Samsung Galaxy S3. Super old, but it was working. Um, yeah, no, that project, it didn't move on, unfortunately. What can I seem to be able to add items from the F3 search menu to my quick favorite menu because it's not implemented, and I really asked the developers multiple times about it, and even one of the core developers say that it wasn't a walk in the park. Basically, the F3 menu, right click and adding a tool to the quick favorites. I asked about it, but he said that at first, like when just thinking about it, it wasn't very easy, and I believe him because he knows everything in Blender. But so that's very sad. Maybe another developer can make puppy eyes to the developers, please, because it would be awesome if for search you could not only add to quick favorites but also set shortcuts. That would be amazing because it's so much easier from here to do it from here than having to go to the wonderful key map editor. Next questions. AnyTX. Are there any plans to manually control clothing simulations more intuitively? Well, eventually, once we have the everything nodes, I think physics could be part of it. So being node based, that could be one of the first steps to make it more intuitively. But for the time being, no, unfortunately. However, this week, yesterday on Sunday night, the first commit for the everything nodes branch was done. So pretty exciting. You can't do much with it. I didn't build it because I asked Jack today. He's the developer working on it, and yeah, he said that it's like more under the hood work, and yeah, you can add a think a modifier and move things around, but not too much. But he's very humble. Maybe he can do more. So I should try and compile it for the next week, just to see what is. So it's not Blender today, but it will be Blender future. Matt881 asks, question: is there any chance to support commercial add-ons like changing Blender's GPL to Apache? Nope. Or overcome GPL restrictions in implementing commercial add-ons. There are commercial add-ons or add-ons that touch other commercial parts, like Sketchfab, for example. That or the V-Ray, for example. There are ways to do it, but the Blender changing GPL, that's impossible. Cycles is easier because Cycles it's sort of new developed, and it was easier to change to agree with all the developers to change the license. But Blender has so many contributors that they all will have to agree to change the license, and I don't see that happening. Blender is like over 25 years old. Explanation. Yeah, about the add-ons like Corona. It's only exported for standalone version, can be fully implemented like Cycles. But that's not something that Blender should worry about, like changing the license to make it work. They should change it. They should have a GPL exporter, importer, whatever, like an app in the middle, like a bridge app, something that can talk to their software and to Blender. And that app, it could be made open source, and it will be completely fine with Blender's GPL because it's an app that is using Blender GPL, Blender code, and it's open source. They just need to open source that part. They don't need to open source the planet, the whole app. But yeah, basically that would be one way of doing it. And then here are the comments from developers from Corona and Adobe Substance. But no, I don't know. That should be, I think that should be the trick of making a bridge app. I think V-Ray did it. 2.80 RC date. Any rough idea? No. Like by the time how things are moving on now, it's just, let's see, February is not gonna happen. March, April-ish, May. I see it more in May. The Blender, the Spring Open Movie project is using it, and we're not gonna finish production until end of March, early April. So end of March, I see. I think. And then there will be more polishing to be done, and yeah, no, just I don't see happening until at least May or April. May. Ernst John Johan, will there be an update to the way you handle custom normals? Need to find this to be able to switch software at work. To the way we handle custom normals, I haven't seen any development on that area yet, but I agree, should be worked on. For games is essential, and for Eevee. Brendan George, would it be possible that we can get parallax occlusion mapping or tessellation in Eevee sometime soon? Not really soon, but not really soon, because focus on Eevee now is performance and making it work with all the graphics cards is possible, and just try to polish it. Blender to the future. An Android build would be awesome for Chromebooks. Yeah, it would be, but it's just yeah, just not very, like, it will lose focus from what we have now, and if Blender should work well on the desktop. It's a production app as well, so maybe somebody can work on it. And actually, it was a Summer of Code project to bring it to Android, and this student made it by himself, so it's possible. Maybe with now that Blender 2.8 uses the OpenGL Core 3.3, maybe simpler to be more compliant with the OpenES, the one for tablets and phones, mobile. Fred, please, develop the outline. Develop is like undoing it. The outliner, or the outline, or the object outline. No, I'm not sure. Anansaru Hurtado, why we can select vertices that are in the back of an object even when they are not visible, yet we can still select them? No, you can select them if they're if you're in X-ray mode, but not if you're not in X-ray mode. Like select, if I click here, no, they're not selected. Like, no, I'm not sure what you mean. Neutronic, I want to append this to the end of my other comment, but it won't let me. Oh yeah, no, you cannot edit. It's a bug. We are working on it. What is your opinion on Remington's graphic denoising solution, Denoise? Well, Denoise, e-cycles, optics, and the other one from Sony. It's just, one thing is, I don't know, I haven't tested them, so I cannot say. I just heard that, I read that some of them are better for low samples, some of them are better for higher samples. The current one from Cycles is good at higher samples. So for example, when you render a shot with 1,000 samples, the difference between 1,000 to 2,000 is nowhere near as from 0 to 1,000, right? Because this is the last bits. So, and they still take time. They could take twice the render time. So that last chunk is what you can use the Cycles denoiser to make it work. The other ones, well, they're add-ons, right? And they're paid add-ons even. So I don't know about this one, Denoise. Tools. Is it free? They even AI. But I want to see them animated. Like, well, okay, I didn't even let it play. Maybe I should let it play first. But I want to see it in motion. Is it denoised? I hope. Maybe it was denoised. It's in motion. And I like this guy, he's funny. Let's hope it's as good as it sounds. Denoising is so needed for the future. Hey, thank you for the eyes. You're keep up the good work. Thank you, Pablo. Don't play videos. Okay, I'm not gonna play videos. Sorry. Okay, it's 10 p.m. I'm gonna do 5 more questions. Why not? Another question. Is there any plans on updating the texture painting tools in 2.8? Yes. Not 2.8D, 2.80, but 281. I bet there will be updates on that, because that's one of the topics that we discussed with the guys from Godot engine. Apparently, the issue that Blender now has funding, but there are no developers, and Godot has way too many developers and no funding. So maybe we can actually do something about it and try and get developers from Godot with experience in the PBR engine and also experience with like painting and stuff, and maybe work with Blender, implementing it in Blender. That could be a good idea. So if you're one of those developers, make a proposal. Or if you're any developers, not even for anything, if you have any experience, make a proposal, make it happen, and we should get this going. There is a need for a PBR workflow from scratch in open source. Hello, so the specials menu, the context, became even worse. Where is the symmetrize and other useful functions? No, context menu just duplicates some functions from Ctrl E, V, and F. It's not even duplicate, it's just basically it's using the context tools. So yeah, we don't have a specials menu anymore, which is a pity though. But yeah, basically what you get from the Ctrl V, it's more or less what you get from the vertex context. And I am not a terrible fan of this, but because I find myself sometimes like I want to smooth shade this. Where is the smooth shading? It's not here because I'm in the vertex select mode, so I need to go to the face select mode, and then I can have more. If I have all three of them, then you get this nice wall of text. Very useful. So if I usually work, for example, by selecting vertices and edges, so you will end up with a special or context menu like this big. And this is just too big. It reminds me of Maya. It's just impossible to read. But yeah, you can basically the reason and the way this should be fixed is by making the quick favorites more useful. So for example, oh yeah, and they're even duplicated items. So handy. Anyway, you can right click and add to favorites, and then when you press Q, you're gonna have it is based on your context, on your mode that you're in. So it should be cool. But yeah, no, it would be awesome if we could edit this list of quick favorites. I am waiting for someone to make it. Please make it, but don't make it an ad. I don't know if you make it, give it away. Let's go give our time for the greater good. Next section, the drag. Can you add back the render buttons to Blender? It's been discussed actually about having the render buttons here. Do you guys miss the render buttons? Give it a thumbs up to this video. I'm kidding. Well, if you want, give it a thumbs up. But if you want to see the render button here, is it needed? Do people press the button? Is F12 needed? Yeah, the thing is that it will kind of break the design because we don't have many buttons that do things here. Like we don't have many operators. Some of them, like the old stuff, like the update animation cache, these are all operators. But ideally, you wouldn't have many. You have like properties because it's a properties panel. Thumbs up. That kind of no. I was talking thumbs up in the video. Sorry, bunch of people. Even nice. Okay. Okay, a lot of people now want the render button. And the render animation, or just the render button? Next question, Chan. Hey, is OpenEFX support planned for Blender? They would mean that many plugins could be used for Blender, many great comp plugins. I would love that. I haven't seen any plannings for that, but it would be awesome. It's just like if Blender would support like VSTs for audio, that would be awesome too. But I haven't read, unfortunately, any developments on that area. Next question, and we can make it the last. As Jaros asks, we know that developers are now focused on getting Blender 2.8 ready. Yes. Fixing bugs and thinking about the future versions 281, 82. I was wondering how things are with right-click select. Does developers check it sometimes? Yes, they do check it. maybe it would be a good idea to have like one person responsible for checking right-click select for 1 hour every week and give the best suggestions to rest of the devs, because I think some good ideas there are buried and maybe it could be implemented. Thank you for the work. Right-click select is full of great ideas. Some of them we have seen them make their way into Blender if you sort by rating. Some of them actually are done. They need to be marked as such, but like a drag and drop modifier stack is the highest ranking, but actually that is going to be replaced by the everything nodes. So drag and dropping, actually, for example, Julian Nasel is the developer that is most involved with the UI, or at least it was during 2016, and even he couldn't do it. So it's like even him, that he was very involved in the UI stuff, it wasn't the easiest thing to do in Blender. So I look, even the drag and drop of the tabs at the top of the 2.8 also hasn't been implemented. So yeah, it's not very easy to do. Some of them have been implemented. More noise type, this shouldn't be too hard. Wow, this is insane, the amount of upvotes that it got in only such a short period of time. This one 3 years, this one 9 months, and this is the second. Crazy. But screen space curvature, for example, this is done. This should be marked as done. If you're the owner of this task, you can set it to done or in development or archive it. But if you mark it as done, we can make it disappear. But yeah, I agree. And right-click select is checked. It is checked by developers usually. But right now, as I said, the focus is in so many other things and getting Blender to be non-crashy and stable-ish for 2.8. That's gonna be it. So yeah, what other questions? Take a look at this. Maybe I'll show it to the developers. I could spend hours in this. What is this? This one, this link, model workplane in Blender. Workplane, what is a workplane? Ah, it changes the it changes the grid. That's cool. That could be an add-on. Maybe someone can code and want to contribute compatibility with 2.8 to this add-on. That would be great, actually. That sounds like a good plan to make it. It's like custom transform. Is there a reason Eevee doesn't have a rectangular camera? Yes, it hasn't been implemented yet, but it will be eventually. Eventually. And that is all. Sorry that I couldn't answer all of them. Harmony 3D game engine is a game engine that was created by Blender users for Blender unit. There just is not a plugin for it. Just make the plugin. Isn't it an open source? Harmony 3D is open source, I think. I never seen the sources, like the instruction to compile it. I've seen it, but I every time I read about it, or like Armor Paint, for example. It's when the Adobe Substance thing happened, it was kind of tricky because a lot of people were pointing here to Armor Paint, which is open source but is paid, and then I was looking for, hey, okay, I'm gonna compile it, and I couldn't find a way to compile it. There's no instructions there, at least in the README. Then here I looked for like sources, like compile, and then I couldn't find like how to compile source code, for example. And I looked at it, but the last people asking about it, how to compile, they didn't get replies. So I mean, yeah, open source should be easy to compile, and it's not very easy. I spent my week trying to compile. By the way, there were any issues with video because I spent my week trying to compile FFmpeg with the NVIDIA encoder, which I managed to do. So now it's actually using the GPU to compile this thing. So to compile, to encode. This live stream has been, if you forgive me, if I'm fine if you give it a thumbs down to this video because I failed so much. The denoise operator didn't work. It worked. It denoised the image. You've seen the graph, the progress bar. It just didn't save. Something with something, I don't know. Then the outliner stuff, also another failure. One after the other. Thank you for being here though, and for the people that I didn't manage to answer, I am sorry. I hope you forgive me. Next week is gonna be 50 episodes of Blender Today. Being together for 50 hours plus. Last week, in order to test this setup, I ran a quick, I think on Friday night, a quick painting slash drawing session with grease pencil on Twitch, not on YouTube, but on Twitch. So if you like that kind of content, maybe I can also do it here on YouTube. It was very informal though. I was just testing it, and it was dark, and I was here with the lights were off, and I was with my glasses, and I was trying to make things work, but it was funny otherwise. If you like this kind of content, let me know. It could be fun to do it. That's sometimes what I do is just draw for a while and answer some questions, but not like this, not like proactive doing it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Saudav. You gave me so many rupees today. I am happy to see you all here, and I hope I can see you again next time. Same place, same time. I will leave slowly, but not before letting you hear the latest and greatest of the summer, of the winter. Thank you everyone for tuning in. It's been Blender Today number 49. See you next week for episode 50. Ciao.